हाणे असां वटि हिन सेगमेंट में जेको अहम कीनोट स्पीकर आहे जेको बेसिकली ही इज़ नॉट प्रेजेंट इन पर्सन but his recorded video has been included in our program, and he is Professor Dr. Jonathan Mark Kenoyer, and the topic of his keynote speech is the origin, development and disappearance of the Indus Script, reviewing the evidence from Mohenjo, Daro, Harappa and other sites. Professor Mark is the George F. Dales Jr. and Barbara A. Dales Professor of Anthropology at the Department of Anthropology, University of Wisconsin, Madison. He obtained his PhD in 1983 at the University of California, Berkeley, and has been teaching archaeology and ancient technology at the University of Wisconsin, Madison since 1985. So, हुन जो जेको रिकॉर्डेड वीडियो आहे उहो शामिल कयो वियो आहे असांजे हिन प्रोग्राम में ऐं चाहींदुसि त
Today I'm going to be talking about the origin, development and disappearance of the Indus Script. I'll be reviewing evidence from the sites of Mohenjo-Daro, Harappa and other sites. And I want to really especially thank Dr. Abdul Razak Channa for the invitation to give this talk. It's a great honor for me to participate in this conference. Also to the other organizing agencies who've sponsored and supported the conference presentations. I also want to especially thank the Department of Archaeology and Museums, Government of Pakistan, for allowing me to work at Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro and other sites. I'm also thankful to this Archaeological Survey of India for providing access to material from India, and also the Ministry of Heritage and Tourism, Sultanate of Oman. I also want to thank all of my colleagues who have shared data and ideas over the years. Special thanks to Professor Mahadevan and Professor Parpola and many others for their major contributions to the field. My research on the Indus has been supported by many organizations, and I want to thank them all. I especially want to call out Harappa.com, which is a website run by Omar Khan, and this site provides access to a lot of the information on Indus writing that we found from our excavations at Harappa, and also other publications by other scholars. Everyone is aware of the early writing systems that have been deciphered in Egypt and in Mesopotamia, and the fact that ancient Chinese writing can be read because there's a strong continuity from the past to the present. But the Indus civilization writing is one writing system that has been very difficult to understand because of the ways in which it's been excavated, and also the fact that we do not have a bilingual text that helps us understand the writing system. So for Egypt and Mesopotamia, we had bilingual texts or trilingual texts that allowed us to interpret this ancient writing system. All of these early writing systems emerged in a landscape that we can map, and we can determine the areas. And I've done this and compared the areas from each of those regions that I mentioned. And the area of the Indus is actually double the size, twice the size of the area in which early writing emerged in these other regions. This reflects the expanse of the geography of the Indus region, the fact that there were two major rivers, the ancient Indus River and the Ghaggar-Hakra Saraswati River, and the fact that writing was being developed over a very broad area compared to what was happening in other areas. Earlier scholars thought that the graffiti on pottery had nothing to do with later writing, but now through excavations and proper analysis, especially at the site of Harappa, we can clearly show that potter's marks and graffiti on the Ravi and Kotdiji phase pottery is clearly linked to the later development of Indus writing, and I'll talk a bit more about this as we go on. Some of the major questions that I want to address, and I will kind of give the summary to begin with, is did the Indus script emerge from internal processes, or was it the result of outside influence? And this region has not been isolated from the other areas. We know that there was interaction across Iran and across the Gulf, but my answer is that the current evidence would be that there is indigenous development, and it's independent development from what was happening in other regions. So the Indus script was not influenced by Mesopotamia or Egypt or China or any other outside area. It's the result of local development. Some scholars in a couple of years, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, began saying that the Indus writing is not a writing system relating to language. This has been totally disproven by people like Nisha Yadav and Mayank Vahia and others by doing analysis of the writing. Even though we can't read it, we can look at the writing system and demonstrate that this writing was used for a language. It was not simply symbols. And other writing systems also were never actually used to replicate speech in the early levels. But one thing we can say for sure is that unlike Mesopotamia and Egypt, the Indus writing system may never have been used to write long texts. It may have been still used to express formal titles, names, and formulae that were parts of speech.
So period 3A seals have animals that are facing to the right, which means when they're stamped in clay, they are facing to the left. Now, left hand and right hand mean something very important in our society today. And if somebody gives you food with their left hand, it's considered an insult. If they give it to you with their right hand, it's considered to be okay. So why are animals facing in different directions? This is something that we can't answer, but it's clearly something that the Harappans thought was important for making their seals. We also see that there are very few signs associated with these seals. By period 3B at Harappa, we see the evidence for longer texts appearing above the seals. We see interaction between the Indus and Central Asia when we have seals, or terracotta with sealing of Indus seal on one side and Bactrian Central Asian seal on the other side. And we start seeing seals with no animal on it. This means that some people did not like these animals or didn't want to have the animals associated with them. And this shows the beginning of a diversification of the use of writing amongst elites. We also see Indus writing being used by other people to write their languages that were distinct from the Indus. By the end of the Indus Harappa phase, we have clear evidence for use of writing in long inscriptions with no animal. But the same style of writing is also used with the unicorn and other animal symbols. Writing is used with narrative scenes associated with ideology. It's used with ritual vessels used for drinking special materials. And it's used in trade. So we see a very clear change in use over time. How was the script used and who had control of it? Based on the recent work at Harappa and other sites, we can say that the script was used by people who had wealth and power. Not everyone had power over writing or power through the use of writing, but writing was publicly visible throughout the cities. So this means that some people could use it for controlling economics, some people could use it for controlling ideology, but not everybody was probably literate and not everyone had seals. And I'll explain how we can come to this conclusion. And finally, why did the script disappear when other aspects of Indus culture continued? I argue that when the people who had power and used the script lost that power, there was no need for other people to use writing any longer, and subsequent elites during later periods did not want to use writing in any form. So we know that from the Vedic period, writing was not used. So another major question is it possible to decipher the Indus script without the aid of a bilingual text? And my answer is no. All of the attempts that we've seen so far have not been successful, and it's not convincing. There's no way to test many of these hypotheses. So without a bilingual text, we will not be able to decipher the script. And this presentation is not going to discuss decipherment, but I will explain to you how we can see how the script was used
and how this was useful for, how this will help us understand the Indus culture itself. I've already referred to some of the different phases, but I thought I would put the chronology here for you. The writing system begins in the Ravi phase, about 3700 BCE, continues through the Kotdiji phase when we see the beginning of the early Indus script. The main use of writing and seals starts around 2600 and continues till 1900. After 1900, the writing system is no longer used. Yet, late Harappan communities lived in that region for almost 900 years. So we have a clear, long use of writing system in the later phases. Writing probably is also associated with concepts of the universe and how the universe is structured. The swastik design is found on the early, or possible swastik sign is found on an early bone seal from Harappa. And this symbol of swastik represents a mandala of the concept of order in the universe. If you divide order into 4 quarters and turn it in the right direction, this brings prosperity. So this is one of the important symbols of the organization of Indus cities. We also see that the use of writing on Ravi pottery starts with inscriptions on pottery that are done either pre-firing, this is done by the potter before the pot is fired, or after firing, which we call post-firing. And post-firing graffiti includes multiple symbols, not just a single symbol. This is an example of 3 symbols put together to create a figure of a person, possibly an anthropomorphic figure, with hands upraised, but also with the trisul, or 3-pointed spear, in the hands. Here it is by itself. So these writing style that we see in the Ravi phase, we don't have a large sample, but it's still clearly evidence that people were using writing on pottery. By the Kodiji phase, those symbols become more formalized, where you see here, and this symbol, which is one of the most important symbols of Indus writing later on, is very clearly developed and used expansively during the Kodiji phase, not just at Harappa, but also at many other sites throughout the Indus region. The symbols that we see on pottery, some of them become transferred to seals, and this symbol, which may represent a house, or kula, or clan, or household, eventually becomes incorporated into later Indus writing. So we can see it go from a potsherd to then a seal, and then to the writing system. So these are examples of the continuities from the early phase. The writing system also shows a different way of using writing. The symbols are found in a sequence that is not the same as in the Indus, and this can be confirmed by computer analysis. It shows that this writing system was versatile, and it was used to write probably more than one language. But finally, we see a disappearance of the writing. So in the late Harappa phase at Harappa, we don't have writings on anything. This is a new type of seal, geometric seal, but there's no writing on it. We don't find graffiti on pottery, maybe 1 or 2 signs, but not very many at all. And overall, the writing system begins to disappear. So in summary, the context that we find it in allow archaeologists to reconstruct the function and importance of writing in the economy, the politics, and the ideology of the Indus cities. There are important changes of writing. We have new types of inscriptions, and writing and seals disappear, except for occasionally some use on graffiti. And the nature of the writing in different contexts suggests that the script was quite versatile and could be used to encode a range of messages which will remain undeciphered until we find a bilingual text. Power of writing. I've argued already that only certain people could use the writing. It was openly viewed. Everyone in the city could see it, but probably not everyone had the ability to use it. And I would argue that the writing was used to legitimize the power of the people who used it by associating them with supernatural powers. So there's a link between writing and ideology. Try to stop the looting of sites. Thousands of seals have been looted from Balochistan and other parts of Sindh by people digging up sites and selling these seals to different dealers in the international market. The people who are looting these sites are Pakistanis, so please tell them and inform them not to do this. And we need to stop this looting. And we need to have more international conferences so that we can talk about the writing system and online platforms where people can see the artifacts and begin to compare the material in a more broader way. So thank you very much. I think I may have gone a bit over my time, but I really appreciate the opportunity to talk about this at this conference. Thank you.